has
It's
been
doing
pressed.
a thing.
It is
It's spinning. It's spinning.
It's spinning.
And we're
It's
live,
spinning.
apparently.
And if we are indeed live, I'm so happy to have all of you here today to watch us because, oh my gosh, we have a super exciting episode. And hopefully that we are live at this point. Because we have
Hello, everyone.
a super exciting episode. Yeah, hi, everybody. We are live at this point by now. Super glad to have you all here today with us on tomorrow, where we're going to talk a little bit. I'm Jared Head. We've also got Ryan Caton as well. Going to be talking, to somebody you might have heard of before, and it is this gentleman right here, Tim Todd, the Everyday Astronaut. Oh my gosh. Look,
Hi,
everybody,
guys.
it's Tim.
Thank you for the full. Tomorrow started the whole always calling me Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. So thank you for always referring to me as Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. It just cracks me up.
You're welcome, Tim
How are
Dodd,
you guys?
the Everyday Astronaut. Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. We're doing great today. It's going so good. We're super excited to have you on here because we're super excited about something that you are going to be doing that we'll be talking about in just a little bit. Also, we're really excited that we're going to be able to allow folks to ask you questions here today. And as you can see, he's back. Everybody's so excited. Like, our audience is excited to have you back. It's not just people just tuning in regularly. It's here. And then, as Alex Physics is pointing out, as we will get to in a little bit, Tim Dodd, the astronaut, soon. And
Your name's about to get a little bit shorter.
Yeah, we're gonna have to update that. You're gonna have to redo your trademark and your registration and copyrights and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into things and what has led you to where you are here today.
Oh man! Wow. All right, the journey, huh?
Yeah. Just a quick summary of it, if you
quick summary.
if
How
you
about,
could
how
do
about,
that quickly.
A couple minutes.
Okay, I was born in a no, just kidding.
In a little shack by the Mississippi.
So for those of you that are longtime TMRO listeners, I mean, honestly, TMRO was a big push, a big help, and a big part of my journey. Honestly, it's been so Everyday Astronaut actually started off as a photography project for me with the old, I don't know if you can see the flight suit in the background here, but I used to be a professional photographer, and I started off by taking photos of myself in that high altitude flight suit as an art project called Everyday Astronaut. I ended up just hiding all these Easter eggs about science and aerospace and spaceflight history in these images. And in that process, I really just fell head over heels in love with spaceflight. And I was watching, like, one of the things that made me love more about spaceflight and learn more about spaceflight was TMRO. And I was watching it regularly. Every single weekend I was watching TMRO. And that's when I started kind of reaching out, becoming more and more of a member of the community. And at one point then, Carrie Ann and Jamie asked me to be on the show and, interviewed me on the show about the art project. And that was probably 2015 or 2016. And just spending time on studio and spending time with the camera and with people. I left that first interview knowing that I wanted to kind of do more than just photography with Everyday Astronaut. So, I mean, it took like 6 more months, I think, before I started really doing anything on YouTube. But that was definitely one of the sparks of I'm going to start trying to create these videos that are, explaining stuff that I'm excited about, explaining aerospace concept, explaining, certain missions and upcoming things. And that's kind of the origin story. And since then, it kind of blossomed from 2017. Early 2017 is when I made my first video. Ironically, my first video ever made where I was wearing the spacesuit at the time, back in the day, where I'm standing there explaining something, was actually, at the time, we didn't know it was dearMoon, but it was the press release from SpaceX saying there's going to be somebody has purchased a flight from us around the moon. And, at the time it was going to be Falcon Heavy and Dragon capsule. But that's the first thing that ever made me stand up out of my chair and go, I'm going to make a video about this. And I shot a video and released it that day. And that was basically the start of Everyday Astronaut on YouTube, was what later became dearMoon.
Yeah, I was about to say, little did you know where that was going to lead to. So really, really cool with all of
It's
that
crazy.
happening there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild with that. Kind of diving into our host channel here, as they're saying in the background here. Oh no, something broke. See, I told you something was going to break at some point today. Love to see the suit in the background now that you're not wearing it with the things like that. Yeah. Okay, there we go. It fixed itself. Every once in a while, you have to speed up the hamsters a little bit there. So yeah. So as they were saying, it's just really cool that you still got your roots. Like there it is, right over your left shoulder there.
Yeah.
Still there.
That's been there for at least 2 years now since I kind of built out this studio space. Was one of the goals was making sure to pay homage to the original flight suit, because it actually ended up living in a backpack for about 2 years. Kind of when I retired it, I didn't give it a proper send off. I just was so over it that I just threw it in a backpack and vowed to never wear it again. So now the mannequin-y McMannequin, I guess it doesn't have a better name, but now wears the suit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. And now I do have to give a full little disclosure here. I'm not able to speak about everything with dearMoon. But but I'm obviously very excited to talk about dearMoon as well. So just so I will tell you absolutely everything I can, of course.
Yes, and of course, if you can't say it, you could say, I can't talk about that. So,
or I'll just give you the worst poker face, which will be like, yeah, and I'll just crumble.
Yeah, you could be like the next generation Dave Maston on the show. I can't talk about that with other.
I loved his interviews always. They were so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And actually, AI Ancestor in social is asking, where can I ask questions? Oh, right in the YouTube channel where we're at right now. You could just go ahead. You got to just pop the questions in and go with that. And Ryan, if you want to jump in, feel free to get that as well. With it.
Loopy has a good question here. Are you going to ask SpaceX to make your what I assume is going to be the same suit they use on Dragon? Are you going to ask them to make it orange?
I definitely am going to see. I don't know if they'll give me a full custom orange spacesuit for the only purpose of paying homage to this thing. I don't know if that's justification to hey, change all your material, change all of your threads, change all of your dyes, or whatever. I highly doubt that's reason enough, but I'm definitely going to ask for
it. Yeah, and to kind of talk about that a little bit, which Bennett is asking, are they still going to be using Starship for the dearMoon project?
Yeah, as far as we know, at this point we're waiting to see Starship fly, obviously, the orbital flight test, and fly many times. Of course, we're going to be seeing, Jared Isaacman from the Players program and previously Inspiration 4.
Yes, not me. Not me.
Yeah, not you, not you, Jared.
As much as I'd like it to be, not me.
But Jared Isaacman has announced that, earlier this year that Players 3 would be the first mission that would fly humans on Starship. So that's obviously once that happens, then it's pretty imminent for dearMoon. We're still saying net 2023, but at this point, yeah, it is Starship. It is Starship.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be done with Starship still in the future. And Tim, I'm sure you can speak a little bit to that, just because of the vast amount of knowledge that you have about the program, between the actual tests that you've been at, the amazing videos you've made about Raptor and different combustion cycles and things like that. There's a lot. There's still a little bit.
I will say that, I've been encouraging my followers and people to always to basically ignore any date you ever hear in aerospace in general, and always just look for milestones. Just wait and make a list of milestones. And Starship, what is fun about it is because it's so well documented, because it's right there along a public road, you can just clearly look at the milestones that need to be done. You need to see, is this hooked up yet? The answer is no, it's not flying, um, we always hear people say things about like conspiracy theories that no, the FAA didn't let Starship fly before SLS. They would, NASA was
Well,
in cahoots.
Elon
with
very
the
clearly
FAA.
said at IAC 2016 that Starship was going to be sending cargo to Mars this year, and it hasn't happened. So who can we blame?
I mean, obviously, everything in aerospace takes 2 to 3 times longer than anyone's projected timelines, just like my videos. I understand the feeling. But there's always those things of, just look at what needs to be done still, what tests are still need to be done. And once those tests are complete, once that hardware is complete, once we start to see like full wet dress rehearsals and a full 33 engine test, then they're probably getting real close or a lot closer to a orbital test flight.
Yeah, and I just want to ask, like, when you so first of all, how did you apply for the dearMoon project, and then what were you thinking as you applied for it? Did you think you actually had a chance in order to get in?
So yeah, I obviously I've been paying attention to dearMoon since it's and I was at the press release in 2018 where it kind of changed from SpaceX flying a crew around the moon to here's Yusaku Maezawa who came up with this idea for dearMoon. So I've been watching it very closely. It kind of went radio silent for a little bit, kind of in like 2019, 2020. We really didn't hear too much about it. Every now and then we hear a little bit here and there. But then in 2021, there was a public open call for applications. And it was, first, I think, just apply and then make a video, or maybe it was make a video and apply at the same time. I don't quite remember what it was, but it was make a 1-minute video. And so I did. I don't think I would have, I wouldn't have done it if I thought there was no chance of me doing it. I definitely, I had already spoken and met some of the dearMoon crew, like I ran into them at the Starship event in 2019. So it was fun to have, I don't know if that was like a foot in the door per se, but this was already kind of my domain anyway, is talking about this stuff. It's, being as involved as I could from the outside perspective, especially in regards to Starship, obviously. So I don't know if I had like a foot in the door per se, but, I would hope that they maybe recognized the face when they saw my video application. And then I can't really speak, obviously it was COVID times and they were dealing with 1 million applications and people from around the world. So you can imagine it was like an insane amount of Zoom calls for their team. And just lots and lots of Zoom calls. There was a medical checkout, very thorough medical checkout. And and it's been, it took a long time. It took a long time for them to do their due diligence and make sure the crew is the amazing crew that we see today.
Yeah. Amazing stuff.
KTTV has a question along those lines. Do you, or when did you learn that you had been picked for dearMoon?
I can't actually say exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
It's been a while though. Yeah.
So the answer is somewhere between when you published your application video and December the 8th, 2022.
Very nice.
Somewhere in there is when you were picked.
Yep.
Okay.
Right around there.
Yeah. And
very specific date.
I was gonna say our chat is full of congratulations for you all over the place because it's just exciting. When I saw your face, I jumped. If I could have done backflips, I probably would have done a backflip just because I was like, I know that guy and he's going to the moon. So it's just not every day you look at who's going to the moon in a mission and then you're like, wait a second, I know that person.
And I do want to remind people 2 things. Number one, I've previously, especially prior to dragon flying, I didn't even want to go to space. This wasn't like, some people have this like drive to try to, do this their whole life, and like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel to try to go to space. That wasn't me. And there's probably on record, I'm sure there's like literally dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of times where people would ask me in chat, like, do you want to go to space? When would you go? What would you ride to space and stuff? And I never would have wanted to. For me, DM2 changed that. Watching Bob and Doug and just seeing the success of the Dragon program made me go, all of a sudden it literally just clicked one day. I'm like, I could do that. I would like to do that. Actually, that looks very, and especially Inspiration 4 made me go like, wow, this is very feasible and looked like a blast. And I wanted to be part of that, obviously applications written by that point. But now, Yeah, so to that point, but the other point I want to remind people too is what's fun for me as being a part of the aerospace community and the even directly here with Tomorrow and things like that too is like for me it's really fun because I do represent so many people from all around the world that are just fans of aerospace, that are fans of this stuff on top of their other life things. Everyone likes sports, music, and then there's this aerospace fan. So it's fun to be able to represent the aerospace fan base community and those that maybe work in the aerospace community a little bit, just to be able to like help share some of the things that have been, outside perspective for so long.
Yeah, and I just want to point something out to because it's being asked in our chat room. If you're staying for our members only part of our stream that we have at the end of the show, no, you will not be. So if you want to ask questions, get your questions in now.
Do it now. Put it in chat. Do it now.
With that.
And I will say I will join you guys for another one gladly. Like, it's been a long time since we've been able to, since I've been on the show. I need to come out there in person and see the studio again. It's been since pre-COVID, I think, since I was actually in studio. Would love to come out and hang out next time I'm in California for sure. Unfortunately, I have prior commitments tonight, though, that I have to leave for. But that being said, I'll join you 100% again in the very near future.
Yeah, I think it's fine, Tim. You're going to the moon, so like you're.
I can't use that for an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, at this point, you can. You can be like, I don't know if I could do that. I got to go to the moon. So Carlos is actually asking, are you going to eat your own hat once you come back from space after you swore that you were, back and forth as going whether you were or not? Is there some sort of like feeling about that?
Hey, I am not. I did not do what Peter Beck did. I was not constantly saying I will never go to space. Maybe I did actually, but I think it was more just that I didn't have a desire to go to space. I would just say like I don't want to go. It sounds dangerous. It seems scary, and just now it's already become marginally more normalized already compared to what it had been. I think the shuttle scared me quite a bit. No offense to the engineers involved in the shuttle program, but that was just a scarier beast. I mean, lack of an abort system. And lack of
if you flew an STS-1, you'd have an ejector seat. You'd be fine.
Yeah, exactly. All the way up until Mach whatever, and your face gets ripped off. But
well, Maverick was able to handle it.
What was that?
I said Maverick was able to handle it. So what's your excuse?
The science has been proven.
Exactly. But yeah, I see the next comment already. No, why do people want me to eat inanimate, especially heavily fibrous things? Are you trying to just ruin my GI tract at this point?
That's not good. Come on, guys.
They already tried to kill you once. The second time wouldn't hurt.
Don't do that.
Second time slowly through like a blockage, an intestinal blockage.
Oh,
wow.
My gosh, what is wrong with y'all? Sorry about that, Tim, but somebody grabbed it. So we had to throw it.
That's funny.
So somebody wants to know, Dan wants to know, if you're only allowed one personal item, what would you take on your flight?
Speaking of the spacesuit, I feel like to make it full circle, I mean, that kind of has to be it, right? I mean, besides the camera, like I really hope I get it. I mean, obviously that's kind of assumed of my position is that I'll be bringing and documenting the thing along with some of the other filmmakers and photographers as well. But yeah, I think it kind of had to be the spacesuit just to bring this whole thing full circle. And the important thing to remember is I think hopefully with Starship's capability, I hope we're allowed more than one personal item just because that thing is huge and has an insane capability. So I'm really excited to see, when we get to that part of the training and mission planning to actually see like what all can we bring? The vehicle has the potential to take 100 metric tons to orbit. And then with enough refuelings, it could take 100 metric tons on a TLI. So yeah, you wouldn't really have to. Can you imagine having, on airlines, you're maybe 35 kilograms sometimes or 22 sometimes or whatever, like depending on the flight. So can you imagine being like, oh, you can have let's see, there's 10 of us. You get 1,500 kilograms. You get, like.
I want that.
So I don't want to even imagine what that would cost on Ryanair.
Yeah. You'd have to just rent the whole thing, really. I mean, yeah, to get enough luggage allotted. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very nice. Well, asking just I guess another I think a really interesting question here from James Atkins, if you feel like asking it or answering it, which is how did Tim's mom take the news that he was going to space? And I mean, just like in general, how's the people around you been taking the news that you're going to go to space?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And actually, I do have to correct. I did a Patreon stream the day after, a private Patreon and supporter stream or whatever, after, like the day after, I think, or 2 days after the announcement. And that was something that someone had asked. And I said, my mom, my answer was that my mom gets emotional when she's seen my brother-in-law and my nephew compete on American Ninja Warrior. And, she's bawling during that. What's she going to do when I leave Earth on a rocket ship? And I said it like that, but I really, she corrected me. She actually messaged, she's supportive enough to watch even my supporter live streams. That's how much, my family supports what I do. And she was like, Tim, we need to remind you, yes, I might get emotional, but we support everything whatever you want to do and everything you do. And that's important for me to be reminded of, because that's kind of been the beautiful support system and the lovely support system with my loved ones that I've been granted throughout really my whole life is to pursue whatever wild things I want to pursue, knowing that it might take a little convincing that it's not the dumbest idea ever sometimes, but they always come around and do fully support me. That's true with my whole family and with my girlfriend and my friends. Actually, my friends kind of joke because they know they know that I have never really necessarily, previously wanted to go to space. So they keep joking like, yeah, Tim, I'm really sorry you have to go to the moon. You're going to be the first person that goes to the moon, against their will and all this stuff. Like, pretty funny joke to me. But nice. Obviously they're all very excited. Everyone's already asking like, so what do we do? Like, will we be able to watch it and stuff? I'm like, guys, don't worry. I'm the king of going to rocket launches. I'm definitely the king of going to scrubs. So I will make sure to, help facilitate that as best I can, because I would love for my loved ones, my friends and family to be able to watch too.
Definitely.
Evis has I think, an interesting question, at least on the content you'll be making from now on. Will your connection now with dearMoon, which is obviously quite a tight one, influence your future videos when it comes to technical details about Starship, etc.?
So, coincidentally, honestly, purely coincidentally, I've been trying on the channel to be more and more generic spaceflight subjects. Like, you can see this in January last year. Oh, wait, January 20. Maybe it wasn't coincidentally. Honestly, I'm trying to be perfectly honest here. But I've found that I really enjoy kind of the bigger picture topics, like why don't rocket engines melt? How do you power a rocket engine? I'm working on one right now. How do you start a rocket engine? Kind of the big topic things that aren't necessarily specific to Starship's current design and current design iteration, because that just, frankly, that kind of, wore me out. And I think, seeing the vehicle evolve so quickly, it's easy to make a video and spend months making a video, and by the time the video is out, the content's completely outdated already. So for me, I've already kind of just been going that direction in general, to be diving deeper into broader topics, almost. I don't know if that makes sense. Diving deeper into broader topics.
Close enough.
Yeah, we'll say it works.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. But so I don't know. I can't say how much that will or will not, influence things, because I don't honestly know what types of things I'll know differently. That's not known by the public. That's one of the fun things about Starship, again, being like right there on a public highway. You do get to see and watch the vehicle evolve and the program, go on. So it is easy to speak from to the public side of things about how things work on the vehicle. So obviously there's still going to be things, but I've always operated that way. If I know something, that's not public, I won't talk about it, and that's always been the case. So I don't think my videos are going to change too much. I think if anything, there's probably going to be a time where they're unfortunately infrequent, kind of like they had been while I was chasing Artemis and Alpha across the country in the news van.
Oh my gosh. Tim, I feel so bad for you over that. Oh, that must have been rough.
Between building that thing and driving the thing and just having scrub after scrub after scrub after scrub. The channel basically was only look at Tim try to do a live stream, for 6 months. So it it wasn't ideal, not ideal for me, not ideal for my for the people that subscribe to the channel. But yeah, meanwhile, you know, I'm working on, I'm always trying to, I have a list, I have no shortage of video ideas that I think will be really fun, period. And then yeah, we'll see. I mean, these are all things that I'll have to kind of negotiate, I think, day at a time, honestly.
Yeah, and then I think, is this one that you grabbed, Ryan?
Yeah,
Because this looks like a
following
good
on
one.
about Luna, how will you fit Luna in the airlock? And on a more serious note, what do you know any of like what the broadcast plans will be for that day? Because obviously, if you're inside Starship, you can't stream about Starship. And GTH042 has a good point. If I do well with my psyche coverage, can I borrow Luna for dearMoon, please?
Hey, honestly, I don't know what that's going to look like. You know, we have, obviously we don't publicly know, or me included, know what the video systems are going to be like on Starship, but it's safe to assume they're probably going to be an updated video system. And who knows, maybe I could literally host launch from a passenger seat. I don't know. I'm dreaming here, obviously, but I think that would be the coolest thing ever. I mean, that's what I'm pushing for, though. I am pushing to make it so it's bringing people along more than we've ever seen before, in a way that's never been done before. Then that's kind of what I've pushed this whole time, is like, allow me to do the best job I can do to bring this to people, bring the emotions, bring the excitement, bring the, you know, even the nervousness and even the tension as you're at T-minus 10 seconds and you're hearing all the creaks and the pops. That is honestly the dream. I don't know if that'll happen. I'm sure there's a lot of, you know, discussions to be had, but one can dream, can't they? Right?
Yeah. And Alex Physics says that you're going to have to make Luna Deep Space Network compatible.
Hey, at this point, I'm thinking I'm just going to have to make it, just throw a Starlink on the thing and push it out the airlock and be like, here you go, broadcast, baby.
A Starlink, you know, just throw a Starlink on it. It's fine. I think throw a Starlink on it is the new, just put a buoy out there for it.
But it really is. I mean, Jared, you know, the upcoming Dragon mission is going to be testing Starlink from beyond Starlink's orbit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
there's going to be sticking out an antenna out the airlock.
Stick its antenna out real far.
Why do you think they're doing a spacewalk? They're obviously just going to have to float out there to get signal with their Starlink.
Just stepping outside.
We got it.
Just trying to figure it out. Oh, there we go. Don't move. Don't move. Don't move. With that there. So to kind of talk a little technical stuff, because I think I did get to see you kind of talk a little bit about some of the things with riding Starship and some of the things that we've talked about with Starship before, especially, you know, lacking a abort system and things like that. And one of our viewers, Ryan Rising, is asking, you know, that I agree abort system was a major problem with shuttle, but how can we be sure that Starship's not going to have the same problem as well? And I think you answered, I think somebody asked you that, and you answered, I think, very eloquently about that. And if
eloquently would be a surprise, because I think there's like a 50-minute video I made about Starship's abort system and lack thereof 2 or 3 years ago. So if I was able to do it eloquently, it's only by trying to summarize that video. But let me give you my thoughts on that. These are my opinions that obviously I've held this whole time. But you know, the difference in the space shuttle had some very major, I think, flaws in its design as far as not having an abort system. You know, obviously, solid rocket boosters, can't turn them off if something goes wrong. Even if it's not something that went wrong with the solid rocket booster, you have 2 minutes and 20 some seconds where you're riding those solid rocket boosters, even if you know there's a major problem, you know, and that's not enough. Like that's a pretty big blackout period, obviously. The other big problem is the orbiter was hung off the side of a cryogenic fuel tank. So obviously, with a fragile heat shield, in line of potential debris strikes, and not potential, but in line with debris strikes, that obviously those two things kind of were some pretty major flaws in the overall design of the space shuttle. Starship avoids both of those by using fully, liquid propellant, liquid-based propulsion, and also by having, the heat shield tiles and the things that could be prone to, that you don't want, having debris strikes, are on the top. They're on the very top of the vehicle. It's also, so I think at this point you kind of have to ask yourself, would you consider riding on a Falcon 9 rocket from through apogee to the landing burn? And even though that's not crew rated, obviously, and that doesn't have redundant landing engines and things like that, that's getting to the point of reliability where if they're not pushing it, if they're doing a routine mission these days, you can just certainly rely on it landing, as you can see in the history of landings. Falcon 9s now, I think they're coming up on, are they at 106 successful landings in a row?
I'm not sure. I think today was 150 something, not in a row, but in total.
Yeah, I think they're coming up on or have exceeded 100 successful landings in a row, which is insane for a system that's very ancillary to the main mission. It's not, the primary mission is not recovering the booster. So if you are looking at, Starship's going to have a lot more redundancy. Okay, thank you, Alex. 83 landings in a row. There we go. Alex always on top. So we're coming up on 100 landings in a row.
Yeah,
and
we'll hit 100 by mid-January with current cadence. It'll be fine.
At current pace, for real. So, I don't know if I would still even consider riding on Falcon 9, but at least there's, I don't know. We'll see. I will have to be a little bit convinced. I will have to see the data and see the design philosophies to be really genuinely reassured that Starship is a safe system, sans an abort system.
Yeah, I think the reply I saw you do is basically somewhere along the lines of hopefully before dearMoon flies, it'll have a large number of flights well ahead to show that it's a flight proven vehicle and things like that. So I think that was your reply to somebody with it. I think it was on YouTube with that there. But actually, there's a really interesting question from Loopy, and not like a disrespectful one, but I think it's a really interesting question to honestly ask anybody who's getting ready to do an adventure of a proportion that could change their life dramatically, which is, do you think you're prepared for this? Like, you probably think you are when you don't think about it, but you sit there and reflect. Do you think you're ready to strap in when the time comes? What do you think?
Absolutely not. And that's what training's for.
Gotcha.
That's why you train, is to be prepared for those times, so that when the time comes, you have gone through all the procedures. You're familiar with, all of the loops. You're familiar with, what's to come, what's to expected, everything. If that's kind of honestly the difference too between something like flying on New Shepard, where the training can be done in a day or within a day's span, and versus having potentially months of training or whatever the training regimen will be for us to really prepare for everything, and that preparedness is what I think will help prepare the brain too, the brain and the heart and the soul for this big crazy mission.
Yeah, because one of the things you want to do as an astronaut is be able to basically automatically work.
Yes.
I mean, you need to work just as quickly as, I don't want to say just as quickly as the computers, but you need to be able to make the decisions just as automatically as a computer can.
And stay ahead of the flight plan. That's, I did fighter jet training with Scott Kid Poteet from Polaris One, and the rest. I was there with the rest of the Polaris Dawn crew. That had nothing to do with dearMoon, by the way. It was just coincidentally I got asked to go out.
Hey, you want to come play with some planes for the day?
Hey, I've got some fighter jets. You want to get in? You want to come on?
Just want to go shopping.
Exactly. Like, how was I going to say no to that? Obviously, I didn't say no to that. And but I learned a ton even from that about just what it's like to kind of put yourself and your body through stressful environments, and learn on trying to focus on your task at hand. And Jared talks about this a lot in that conversation I have with him, where it's you got to stay ahead of your checklist. You got to stay just like you do if you're a private pilot license, you learn to stay ahead of the plane. You don't want to ever have you're about to be landing and you're like, oh God, what's my checklist, and you're trying to catch up on your checklist. Like, that's the plane and the flight being ahead of you.
Yes.
Same type of thing goes for obviously for space flight, where you just want to be able to make sure you're mentally prepared ahead of things before they come up even.
Yeah. Panic is always developed through poor planning, I guess, is a nice way of phrasing it that way. Let's see. I'm just looking in our chat
Speaking
room
of
here.
training, Johnny Cheese has a good one, actually.
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing any flights on, I say the Vomit Comet, there's plenty of people who do zero-G flight. Is that something that's on your radar before you start official training?
I don't know. I almost had the chance to do it at the Polaris fighter jet training weekend. They actually did some zero-G flights. I don't know. NASA doesn't do it anymore. They don't necessarily see much of a value in it. Obviously, this isn't NASA, but I think that'll be up to the dearMoon team, along with SpaceX, to determine if there is value in that, and if it's worth us doing. Then I'm sure we will spend some time in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know any science or scientific tasks which you're going to be given for dearMoon? That's from Matty.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have any information on that.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Plain and simple. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely going to be art happening. That's for sure, because there are a ton of artists going on this flight. And are you excited about some of the people that you're going to have the opportunity to be flying with?
Oh, 100%. Listen, I think you guys know I'm obsessed with science and engineering and mathematics and everything that makes aerospace happen, obviously. But to date, of the humans that have been out to the moon to experience that, and the majority of humans that have been in space in general, their sole purpose of that mission hasn't been to absorb it and share their experiences, through creativity and whatever else means, I guess through their talents, I should say. So this will be pretty crazy to actually think that now we're going to have a ship full of people the mission of this mission is to soak it in and to share that experience. And I really am curious what it's going to be like, instead of being, task laden and saturated with, with an insane checklist again, like the Apollo astronauts. Obviously, Alan Bean was an artist, and some Cernan shots were amazing and things like that. But they had much bigger tasks at hand than, hey, just make sure you take this in and share it with us back here on Earth. So I am very excited to see how these people are changed and sculpted, and what works come out of dearMoon. I think, and this is actually almost what I said. I think after the announcement, I made a video in the TMRO studios, because the announcement was in Hawthorne. So I shot my video in TMRO studios about at the time it was kind of like, why does BFR keep changing? At the time it was called BFR instead of Starship. And, I said that I was like, this mission has the chance to be one of the most profound and potentially a much bigger impact than I think people are expecting, just because its sole purpose is to communicate and share the human experience of it.
Yeah. That's just so radically different from what spaceflight has been. And that is really going to be something amazing.
Which is why it is a very, very big honor for me to be on this mission, because I personally, I guess I talk about this stuff for a living. So I know the importance of trying to share the experience and do the live streams on site at rocket launches to try to share that with people. And I know that some people hate the screaming. I can't help it. I'm human. But like, I love, it's always important to me at rocket launches. We try to always put a camera behind us that shows the perspective of what it's like to be there as the rocket's taking off. I just love that shot. That shot is just so important to make that connection for everyone that isn't able to be there. So it's just such a big honor to know that this is something that I get to think about a lot, that I get to spend a lot of time planning and preparing for. And to do my absolute best on this mission is going to be so fun.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you're definitely keeping your eyes on at the moment? Like, what are some of those the unknowns that need to be solved, that can be spoken of before things can finally progress and really start to hit a stride where you can be like, okay, now we really are starting to make this happen?
Yeah. Obviously the biggest ones is seeing Starship start flying, orbital missions. Obviously, once it's up and flying, that's going to start hitting home a lot more. Hopefully once it starts flying successfully, repeatedly, that will be a very good sign. Once we get called into Hawthorne to start doing training, that's going to be obviously hitting home. We don't have a timeline for that, like I said, but I expect that, personally, I'd expect that to start happening in 2023. And it's just crazy to think. Those are the big things. Once Starship starts flying, I think a lot of questions will be answered for a lot of people, obviously me included.
Yeah, me as well. So being an engineer,
all of us.
Yes, me as well.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And Alex, being awesome as always, has got this screen grab from that very video, basically sitting where Jamie would be sitting right now if she was here,
Yep.
on that side of the studio, however
Yep.
many years ago.
2018, 4 years ago.
yeah, we're
Baby Tim.
still orbiting the same planet here at Station 204. Can you believe it? So, although it's gotten a little
The
bluer.
vinyl hasn't
out
peeled
over there.
off.
So
Yeah.
it's still, we're still,
Still cannot believe Jamie hasn't just put the world's most expensive like LED screen back there. I shouldn't have said that because
don't challenge her.
I know.
Don't do that. You'll just make her mad. So
Robert here, I think, has a good kind of profound question, I guess. Neil Armstrong was famous for going against private spaceflight, especially SpaceX. What do you think that Neil Armstrong would think of the Dear Moon mission?
Well, I obviously can't speak for Neil Armstrong, but the perspective at the time was that this was just such a big hurdle, and the capital investment necessary to make spaceflight even remotely feasible was just insane. It just was. We're talking billions. We're countries. At the time when he made that statement, I don't think even China had put a taikonaut into space. Maybe they had, but at that point it was Soviet Union and Russia. And the United States were the only people that had put humans in space. So, of course, the idea that private companies could actually catch up and begin to even surpass the capabilities of government, direct government programs was pretty unheard of. I don't think anyone really honestly believed it until the success of, even remotely believed it until the success of the commercial resupply missions. And then now with the very successful commercial crew programs with the Crew Dragon capsule, I think, it was a fair statement at the time. I think given the data available now and seeing the success of the commercial industry now, I think likely he would have a different thought altogether about commercial space flight. But I also would think as a human, he would be quite awestruck by the fact that non-test pilots and NASA astronauts would have an opportunity like this. I think that would be a pretty big milestone. And frankly, I honestly think he would have honestly expected to see that in his lifetime. If anything, I think a lot of the Apollo astronauts expected that. I was just listening to a little bit on the Apollo 17 and they're going, it'll probably be 10 years, 20 years before we get to Mars, but maybe it'll be, might not be until the end of the century. That was their mindset when they came home from Apollo 17. That was the pace, the trajectory NASA was on, was like worst case scenario, humans would be on Mars by the end of the 1900s. We are obviously not at that point yet. So I think there was an expectation that this would become a lot more routine, a lot more normal. So I think a part of him would have expected that there'd be a crew of all civilians flying around the moon. But I think, and I think he'd be very excited by that. Of course, I'm not sure there's much to not be excited about, honestly.
Gotcha. Tim, that was a little bit of a difficult one, a little bit of a profound one to wrap up you appearing with us here for this episode of Tomorrow News, our live show for this week. And of course, we don't want to take up any more of your time than we need to. We definitely appreciate you coming on to talk with us.
I see there's a question from Mac, and when there's a question from Mac, we got to answer
and
it.
Thank you. And of course, thank you, Mac, for the super chat as well. Let's go ahead and go to Mac. Mac, you get the last one for this episode where Tim, you said you're going to come back at some point, but let's get this one.
Okay. Want to read it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I thought you were going to read it. That's okay. But maybe I should, the person on the show possibly read it. Will you be wearing the SpaceX IVA suits or the Polaris EVA IVA suits or something brand spanking new?
Yeah, and honestly, we don't know yet. Not that far along in mission planning. I just realized literally like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and that, obviously by the time we fly, Polaris will have done an EVA, an extravehicular activity, done a spacewalk. Starship will likely have airlocks. What if Dear Moon would have the option of having a spacewalk, or is that like an upcharge? Will that be like because realistically, think about the costs of not only the actual suit itself, but the cost of additional training to do that. If that's something that is an option by the time Dear Moon happens, and obviously MZ is probably prepaid for the mission, so I'm not sure he's going to get all these new upgrades. I would honestly probably try to crowdfund whatever the additional cost is to do an EVA, because can you imagine at this point, if you're going in, that deep, you might as well go for an EVA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would do one on the
Why
dark
not?
side, the far side of the moon. So
Exactly.
while
Can you
listening to Pink
imagine?
Floyd. So like I'd have to do it with that there. So, but once again, Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut, thank you so much for coming on to talk with us a little bit about the dearMoon project. We're definitely going to have you back on because you said you want to come back on. We will absolutely pick your brain. Maybe we can have like one where we just kind of talk like a cultural episode, like the impact of that. Another one with a technical episode, something like that. But ultimately, we're going to get you back at some point. And
Sounds great.
Super excited. So Tim, thank you so much for coming on today. Greatly appreciate it. And everyone in our chat room is just absolutely ecstatic that you were here and also that you were chosen to go to the moon on behalf of all of us.
Well, thank you guys. I love you guys so much. This is still one of my all-time favorite shows. And like I said, this is definitely where I got my start and what helped push me to do what I want to do. So I just always thank you to the bottom of my heart for everything that TMRO does in the community. But I also just want to say thank you guys for hosting me and having me and for cheering along. I hope that you guys are excited for this because it's going to be, I think, pretty profound and something that I'm really, really excited for.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tim, thank you so much. Everybody thinks that you are the coolest guy ever with that there. Also, people are super proud of you as well. And
thank you guys.
You need to be live from space, very obviously, and coming back soon. So excellent.
Awesome. Thank you everybody so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. So thank you all for coming in, at least for the Tim portion of our show that we have going on. That is not all that we are going to be doing on this episode. Tim just needed to go a little early. I mean, like, hey, I got to go to the moon, right? Perfectly valid excuse to not be able to stay. We just obviously want to respect the amount of time that can be allotted, if you will. So thank you again for Tim for coming on with it. And also thank you guys watching for your awesome questions. I'm so glad that we were able to basically defer most to you and work with that. And in addition to that, there was a lot happening this week. Ryan, what were some of the things that were interesting to you this week, just beyond the dearMoon announcements?
Oh, let's think about it.
Am I just putting you on the spot here, or what?
A certain spacecraft has returned from the moon. I don't know if you've heard of it before. It's called Orion.
What?
Launched on a big orange rocket.
No.
Came back on, was it Monday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday. It came back on Sunday, splashed down in the Pacific, and Orion is home. You'll get a news about it tomorrow, hopefully, fingers crossed, if I can get it out in time. Yeah, so this is just going to be a promo for the news. Watch it tomorrow. You'll get more information then.
Yeah, and that was really cool watching that. I've never had a crewed vehicle actually return from the moon in my lifetime, at least. I don't know about y'all out there. I'm just currently busy attempting to grab what I can from the footage that was released of it. I'm sure there's better footage out here that I'll find in a second, but that was really cool to be able to do it. No sonic booms here in Los Angeles, which I don't really think we were expecting too much in terms of that, but recovered, returned, and good to go with that there. Wow, I gotta say, Mach 32 looks really, really fast when you're coming in hot like that. So, whew.
I mean, yeah, it's just, imagine some kind of point-to-point transport system where you could get around Earth really quickly at very high speed. That'd just be great, wouldn't it?
I was gonna
really,
say,
really
oh
helpful.
man, like
Lucas Rem has a good point though. Say that the close-up shots that NASA spaceflight did! ! And if you want to find out more about that, then we also had someone on last week. Good old Jack Beyer, who came on and started chatting with Jared because I couldn't be here because I was a bit groggy and not feeling great.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you ain't feeling great, don't come on. So. That's kind of.
So if you want to learn more about that, go watch last week's because last week's episode was also really good.
Yeah, and I was going to say I was actually going to grab NASA spaceflight stuff a little bit here because NASA spaceflight's just awesome at what they do, and real recognize real is basically how we operate here on TMRO. So take a gander at Jack's work that Jack did with Orion coming back, and I really like this because you get to see just how big Orion is.
Yeah.
And Orion's really big.
It's also really scorched.
Just a bit. The 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the thousands of degrees Celsius, and many thousands of degrees Kelvin. For those of you who want to do the proper units. Yeah, it is a bit scorched as it comes back in through the atmosphere. I'm no expert in things that are burning, but boy, does it do that there. And that was the USS Portland, by the way, that recovered Orion. I recall last week, me and Jack were making fun of each other a little bit, ourselves really a little bit, because we could not recall which ship was going to be the one going to get it. So also, I was just about to say that they kind of flood that area and bring it in like that flooded ocean kind of deck and then pull it out. It's almost
it's a bit different to the way that SpaceX do it, because SpaceX have a big crane on the back of their ships and they kind of hook it over the Dragon and lift it onto the nest. NASA, on the other hand, just flood the boat, turn it into a semi-submarine, float Orion in, and then drain the well deck. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say it almost looks like something out of James Cameron's The Abyss. With that there, so it's pretty wild that they're able to do that. I guess you can get the ship down a little bit in order to do that, but wow, very, 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 very cool that they recovered it. Things look like it went exceptionally well with Orion, which, I mean, hats off to NASA. They really did a good job on that. And Arvale has a really good question, which is, were Snoopy and Shaun the Sheep able to egress on their own, or did they need the stretchers?
So I don't want to spoil news for you tomorrow, but what I will say is that I think it was a particular biology experiment was extracted from Orion first in California. Orion is already or will be put on the back of a truck and taken to the Kennedy Space Center, and from there they will offload more payloads. And as sadly Shaun and Snoopy are both classed as payloads, I think they will be offloaded when Orion gets to Kennedy. It's either en route or nearly en route. I don't know. I don't have a tracker on it, because if I did, I get banned from Twitter.
No. Ryan, be nice. That's all I'm gonna say. You child, be nice. Don't do that. Don't.
It was too easy. It was too easy.
Don't make me want to jump in on this. So stop. Stop.
If I disappear, it's Jared.
Yeah. I disappear after talking about having pancakes at the Alaska Lounge at LAX. Tell the world I loved them. So. Yeah, so I was going to say, Alex, just before we went on that little tangent there, that very expensive tangent, Alex is saying that this is tomorrow. Everything is a spoiler. So, yes, that's very, very true. All of what we do is a spoiler of that. So, yes. So, with that, anything else that was interesting to you this week? Because I'm pulling up mine right now.
Well, I'll just buffer for you to pull up your favorite part. I think I can kind of see what you're going for.
Yeah, well,
in the little preview that I have here. I wouldn't say it's a very good thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not actually my favorite part of this week, if you will. You know what I mean? But it is something that happened this week, which, if those of you who don't know, there was a major coolant leak from Soyuz MS-22 up on the International Space Station.
It's just snowing, Jared. The crew of the ISS just wanted some of that wintry weather. They want to have a white Christmas. What you got to hate on them for?
Wonderland. Oh, the algorithm.
Exactly.
Sorry.
What's wrong with that?
But yeah, look at we don't want a copyright strike from the BBC again. I better be quiet. But yeah, coolant line dumping out just a little bit out into space there, leaking for several hours. I remember I started dinner when this began, and it was still going when I was done. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess it really is not exactly going so well. Oh yeah, very good point, Seki, which is at those space laboratories on Soyuz need a plumber. Well, sometimes it just happens. If you've ever seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, you probably know the scene that I was just thinking about in my head right now. Morning, Clark. So yeah, not good to see that going on there because that can get all over the. I mean, I would imagine it is all over the outside of the International Space Station, probably on instrumentation and other things like that, and just that's like not good. And then also 3 astronauts rode up in that, 2 Russians, 1 American, and like that's their lifeboat, supposed to be their lifeboat home.
Wow. At the moment, it is their only chance of getting home in an emergency. Whether it will work properly or not is yet to be determined.
Yeah,
but that is the protocol. I think if an emergency happened right now, they just kind of have to cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Yeah, not exactly the best thing to have. So, and GTH 042 saying, shouldn't the instruments be able to handle some debris and dust? Yeah, just a little bit. But ultimately, when you have that much pouring out of a spacecraft, it is not very, very good with that there. So, yeah. JTTV is always so good at throwing those last minute topics that we should have covered but forgot to cover, which is that Rocket Lab launches from the US Sunday, maybe?
I really hope not. And I'm not hating against Rocket Lab, right?
Yeah.
But I arrive in. Well, I can't say where I'm going to arrive because I'll get banned from Twitter, but I arrive at a major airport in a big city named after York in the northeast of the United States on the morning of December 19th. And I will be really upset if Electron launches just down the road on December 18th, because that big city that is named after York in the northeast of the United States, which I definitely won't be arriving at on December 19th, is like in the 1 minute on the little radius map that Rocket Lab published. It's like 1 minute away, so I could see the launch, but I can't if I'm not there. So if Rocket Lab could just delay by a day or further, then that would be lovely. Thank you very much, Peter.
You're going to get our entire Twitter account banned.
We are just off. We are off the face of Twitter.
Because remember, it's not just who's doing it; it's any association with having done it. So none of you are free of sin with that there. So with that, yeah, everybody's saying sorry. It's
they've been delaying long enough. What's one more day,
Ryan?
That's my point. It's just one more day. Come on.
Yeah, it feels a lot like Space Launch System. What's one more day if it just ends up having
one more day?
It's just another day, with that. All right. So, as Jason is very rightly pointing out, remember that we have Spacey Space, our really super awesome Mastodon instance, or Federation or whatever it's supposed. What's it called? I don't know. But it's just a lot nicer. And it's just really
like the
cool.
Fediverse or something. I don't understand it. I pretend to understand it. I think they toot. I toot on there. I have a thing, so if I tweet, it toots. But if I toot, it doesn't tweet. But if I retweet, it retoots or toot. I don't know what it's called. They're linked together somehow. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Follow us on Mastodon, because it's not all the stuff we put on Twitter.
Yeah, luckily,
it's different.
Hopefully we won't get banned for talking about come on our Mastodon as well with that. So join our Mastodon with that. So all right, cool. So why don't we go ahead, since we're just gonna wrap things up here. To our Tomorrow members, if you are watching this show. Those of you who have stuck around, thank you all so much. Today, having Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, on was such a joy. Tim is always great to be around, and thank you all who came to watch Tim that also decided to stick around and watch us as we did our usual. And we're watching. Look at this. Some people are celebrating. Of course, we want to thank. First, let me thank Neurostream, who is our tomorrow Model 33 Plaid Pro Plus member. Allow me to read the screen in front of me. There, Maddie Rock and Roll is celebrating 13 months of membership. Robert also 12 months of membership, a full year. Bennett 9 months. Oh my gosh, get it in, everybody. I saw that. Woohoo! Woo! David Lane got that 1 month. Welcome, David. Glad to have you nice and fresh with that here. I think what's so cool is that there were a couple of you that became members tonight, so thank you so much for that. You get to stay around for our after show. If you'd like to become a part of that, you can head over to youtube.com/TMRO/join. You can also become an Escape Velocity member, where you get to see our Escape Velocity Discord, where you could have seen tonight while we were coordinating things. I accidentally sent a few what were supposed to be direct messages into the Escape Velocity area, so that was really, really fun with that there. Thank you to all of our Escape Velocity members. And we got Alex, 34 months, almost 3 years. Goodness. Wood 4000, 13 months. Thank you so much. James Atkins, 12 months with that there. Aravale, 12 months as well. Thank you, Flo, for becoming a member. Oh, thank you, Colt, for gifting one Tomorrow Space News membership out there. Flo, thank you for becoming a member. Also, Andrew, congratulations. Welcome to the Tomorrow membership.
It's all happening in the last minute of the show.
Yes, it's passing it out. We're just stacks on stacks. Eka, thank you so much for your many months of membership with that there, which is true. Allison, thank you so much for the 13 months of membership. We also have our Orbital members as well. Of course, remember, you get to do some really, really cool stuff, like get to see scripts, other things like that. Oh my gosh, Colton's just sending out the memberships with it here. And then Coda got the one from Colton. So Coda, welcome. And you can also become a suborbital member here at Tomorrow. These are done, these are monthly, just to remind you of that at youtube.com/TMRO/join. What's really cool is that you get to stay for the after show. Unfortunately, we were not able to get Tim to stay for this episode's after show. But we will absolutely try to make that happen for the next show that Tim is on. That would have been amazing to do that. We're going to have the new members in our members only stream, which starts immediately after. We've also got our ground support members as well. Thank you all so much. I really just cannot emphasize how much it helps us out here at Tomorrow, because just keeping Station 204 in orbit around Planet Calf is quite a lot with that. Brian here celebrating 37 months of membership. Our fail. Tim couldn't stay for the after show because he's not a member. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, we also have our system support members as well. All it takes is as little as 99 cents a month to join us in the after show. So super excited to have you all there. Thank you all so much for coming, watching us talk a little bit about dearMoon with Tim. We're definitely going to get him back on because he said he wants to come back on. So we're to it, and we will catch up with him pretty soon. So thank you all so much for joining us today and sticking around. And if you become a member, you can come to the member stream, which we're going to be going to in just a second. So bye, everybody. We'll see you later. Enjoy yourselves. We're going to
wave to wrap it up.
Wave.